Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James. I am so happy to be here today with our guest, Ilan Stephani. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Shana.
We are going to talk about what to do with a woman's anger and your own anger too. But so many men come to me wondering, oh my God, what do I do when she gets mad? And there's this sense of I either need to, get it to go away, or I need to, meet it with my own anger, or just a total confusion of like, what do I do here? This is a really confusing place for a lot of men. And of course, you have your own anger, those of you listening, and what to do with that and how do you express it in a way that's safe and that actually creates more connection or intimacy rather than breaks things apart. So thank you so much, Ilan, for being here today and for being our guide with this important topic.
Oh, such a powerful topic. Thank you so much. It's a bit weird for me, I admit, to be now interviewed as somebody who could guide through that, because I remember so vividly being so shut down around my own anger that it's like, it's still absurd for me that I am talking about my anger. And on the other hand, I did so much in order to reclaim the power of my anger that I think I'm an expert in how to fail and how to keep struggling and how to finally find the breakthroughs as well. So I'm very, very happy to share whatever I found, and let's see where we go from there.
Because I remember when I was 27 years old, I was driving through Golden Gate Park. I had this feeling and I was like, I think I'm angry. It was like the first time in my life that I remembered being angry, because I have been a woman who was I just immediately went to sad. My anger channel was totally blocked off. My mom was very angry and I decided I was not going to be angry. And so I just was this nice, good girl, sad and going more into the depressive place. And so it sounds like you had a journey. What was your journey with anger?
Yeah. Very, very similar. I got numb instead of crying. But what you pointed out is something that is so brilliant, because I hear it over and over again. Women saying, I got angry and then I somehow got sad.
Yes.
And I would say 95% of all cases, the sadness is not sadness. It is an escape from the anger energy, because the anger energy feels like being too much for the woman. Yes. And I think, first of all, we really have to acknowledge that in our collective wounding as men and women, we come from different places when it comes to anger. Yeah. So a woman totally misgets why a man is angry and how he is angry and what he is experiencing inside while he is angry or mad, and the other way around as well.
Wow.
So I could wrap your question up around, okay, and that's a very typical dynamic between the sexes. The man thinks the woman needs something to be fixed and the woman just needs him to hold space. Right. But when it comes to anger, it's not about this challenge. That's a side aspect of the whole nightmare. Yes. But the main challenge is let's come from the story of a good girl, because that's the collective suffering.
Yeah.
When we get conditioned as girls, we learn you are part of the sex that is in danger due to their own biology.
Yeah.
And if you are conditioned as a boy, you are conditioned to believe you are part of the species that is a walking danger. You are dangerous. So that means that men learn to suppress their anger because they fear what they are capable of if they become angry.
Yes.
Women struggle for the rest of dignity and a little bit of access for their anger and their anger power because they want to feel safe. They do not want to feel in danger all day long. So in other words, a good girl never ever experiences safety. With the best lover on earth, she doesn't experience safety.
Wait, how
With
come?
the most,
how come? Because she's not feeling her own power, or what's
exactly. Exactly. Eventually, we feel safe with the other one because we know I am my best backup ever. And then love on top. And then the we on top. But first and foremost, I am responsible for my safety. And I'm ready to fight against you whenever it's truly needed. So
the woman, you're saying the woman, okay, I just want to slow this down.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand. The woman feels like I am my own backup and I am ready to fight against.
Exactly. And a good girl is never ever allowed to fight for herself. And if she tries to fight for herself, she gets belittled.
Yeah.
She gets laughed at. Oh, sweetie. Yes, it's okay.
Right.
And that is part why men struggle so much with a woman being angry, that the woman still has with her anger also the desperation, you won't take me serious anyway.
So she's got to be even louder and bigger.
Exactly.
And I feel like there's this hybrid too, because I can see where I've gone through the good girl phase. Then I went through the phase of, okay, now I'm going to try and actually have anger or just allow anger. And so, and my clients come to me and say, some of their partners are either there's like a sense of bitchy or cold or a little bit distant or pissed off. There's like that low level anger. And then there's the good girls who never get angry. And I wonder, I have this theory and I wonder what you think of it. It's like even the ones who are kind of a little more bitchy or pissy, seems like it's because of not actually fully expressing the fullness of the anger.
Yes, it's like you do not warm your whole system up with your anger. You do not allow the fire.
Yeah.
You only allow the charge.
Yes.
And that is a definition of the bitch. It's like the snappy, wait, I will never forgive you. And this cold, snappy bitchiness is not our essence.
No.
And it's very tragic when we make it out of the wounding of the good girl and not then farther than just into the bitch phase. And even this is very important to acknowledge. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's really a struggle and it's really, really complicated. So the best thing that a man can do with a woman anger is taking serious that she is a potential killer herself as well. And this being taken serious helps her nervous system to restore the sense of dignity and safety that comes with the self-responsibility of the own anger. And I think
slow that one down.
Of course,
So if I love it. You're so wise that you drop these bombs and I think you don't even realize it. It's like, okay, so if he sees her as in her own right, she is a killer, right? Can you translate that into modern day? What is he supposed to do with either the bitchiness or that full blown, explosive anger?
So the full-blown explosive anger, I do not want to glamorize that. And I also want to just put the footnote here first that me as a woman or as a girl, I never ever learned that I could be of danger for anybody.
Right. No.
And the truth is I can kill another being just because I studied that over the course of the last millions of years in evolution, like every other living being as well. So it's very important to know, like for men to know, they are conditioned to think I'm a walking killer, I'm a monster inside, and she's a walking victim. And so women, when they tap into their anger, they are completely unconscious and unaware of their explosiveness.
Yes.
Women are unaware in most cases for their aggressiveness and how brutal they are. So if a woman's, I would never harm somebody, and their partners are like, who's talking?
I'm scared
there?
of you.
Yes, exactly. And women, like really, we can't see how much men are afraid of women and how much men are afraid of their partners. So I really want to acknowledge the hard job that men have there, seeing where she has her blind spots, and at the same time helping her release this charge that comes from 4,000 years.
Yes.
So it's not an easy task.
That's a really beautiful way of saying it. It's like in partnerships, we could actually help each other. I see partnership as a way to grow and heal together. And so releasing the charge is like, oh, this interesting way of viewing anger is a charge. Anger is, it's a fight. It's a stand for something. It's a belief in something, and how to actually help as a partner let that come through, as opposed to, like you said, like that kind of fading or fizzling, or just then we just turn into that bitchy defensive woman.
Yes. Let's put it into a very concrete situation. There is a she and a he, and she's in full-blown anger, which is a very good setting for him to kind of support her or her nervous system in how to fulfill the circle, how to release the charge. As long as she's in this ice-cold bitchiness, it's very hard because her nervous system doesn't offer a release state. It offers a kind of frozen hatred of revenge, and that's not a good jumping board. But this full-blown anger, it's very, very good. First of all, man, you do not have to do something for her or with her. And the most important thing for him, I think, is to stay grounded in himself. And the best way to do that is to make sure he's not so you are, as a man, not shutting down, which means in my situation, whenever I want to make sure that I do not get into a freeze or shutdown mode, I stand there and do a shaking in my whole body. So that's very, very important. So the moment you are shouting at me and I'm standing there, breathing deeply, looking at you and shaking in my whole body, like voluntarily, vividly, with all my legs and arms and all my structures in my nervous system and body, I first of all support my own nervous system in taking on the lead in this intensity of the situation. And secondly, I am the partner animal for this full-blown anger animal that resonates in a very alive way, that resonates in a way of, wow, I get that there is a lot of energy coming from you. And that is the opposite of belittling her, the opposite of fixing her. And it is a nervous system to nervous system language for I'm taking you serious. And then the second important thing is you do not have to celebrate her for saying no. You are allowed. Her for saying no. You don't have. It's like not. It's not. Oh, okay. After 4,000 years of not being allowed to say no, she says no all the time, and that's sacred. And she needs her healing. She is doing her healing job right in this moment, fully on her own, and that's her job, and that's her capacity, and that's also her willpower. And you, as a man, can do the same thing in the same moment. So whenever she's saying something and it's hurting you, how about standing there and saying, I'm hearing you and you are pissed and I'm sorry if I hurt you and still this doesn't work for me. Here's a boundary. Right. Yes, and you are not allowed to cross that as well.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot with my men, the middle way, like it's not a collapse and it's not a posture or an explode or a belittle, right? There's that middle
wonderful, yes.
Like you just said, I'm grounded in my body, and whether men are open to doing the shaking and, moving their body like in the midst of a conversation, or whether they think, whoa, my partner would think that was super weird. They're all.
In a fight. If it's a partnership fight, I think in a conversation, it's a bit unrealistic, but in a fight, I think.
And if they learn from you and their partners are part of this dynamic, right, they could all learn to do that. And I think I just want to highlight the foundation is what you said, which is brilliant, staying grounded in your own, it's like your strength and your heart, right? The balance between I am here, I am strong, I am with you, I'm not discounting you, and I'm also standing up for myself and what is okay for me.
Yes. And that's such a wonderful lecture, because part of the human drama around anger is either you have your rights or I have my rights.
Right.
And this doesn't serve anybody.
One or the
so
other.
The moment that I'm shouting at my partner and he is celebrating my boundaries instead of his own ones, he's not supporting me.
Okay.
Because
we got to slow that one down too. So if he's celebrating my boundaries, but letting go of his own, it's like a win-win. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And it has to be a win-win.
Yes.
Anger is here as a power for peace, because it can bring self-dignity, self-empowerment, and self-love to all of us.
Yes.
So the moment that I am, as a woman in a relationship, shouting and trying to recover from the good girl conditioning, and my partner is welcoming the intensity of the situation and is learning the same thing in the same moment, we are a win-win-win match.
Yes.
And that's so important. And it's completely invisible for most women that I know, how much men give up their own boundaries in order to support the women in their healing journey. And I appreciate that so much.
I mean,
men
so much.
Men are such a generous species.
I know.
Oh my God.
Appreciate men so much for that. And I'm also like, wait, no, this doesn't work, right? You've got to, you can't lose yourself in the process. Otherwise, there's no you there to be loved. There's no you there to be in partnership. Yeah, we need.
And the tragic thing for men is really, I think women do not have a clue around how hard that is. But most men in this society feel castrated by the structures for good reasons. And since it's so invisible, it's really like, wow, I am my own backup. And she might not even see how hard this is for me.
Say more about what you mean by I am my own backup. I know we talked about it before, but I just want to understand what it means in this situation. How does that play out?
Eventually it is, if I would have to decide at any given point between the we and the me, I would choose the me.
That's okay. So that's what you're saying, that a woman has to get to that place of her own strength?
No, just everybody. Just every living being. Everybody who wants to feel safe and intimately connected with others is wired for this underlying structure in the nervous system.
To choose ourselves.
Yes, choosing ourselves first. It's like that love and self-love are one and the same. Gets only revealed to us if we are willing to put self-love first.
Interesting.
Self-love first.
Yeah.
The whole thing recovers from there. If we say love is in any given moment more important than self-love, we are inheriting the confusion.
Yes. And that speaks to, I think, what we were saying about if men are giving up themselves, that's a lack of self-love. It's a lack of standing for themselves.
Yes.
But the whole foundation gets crumbly because there aren't two self-loving, grounded, mature people to come together and collaborate. It's more like two balls of wounds or two wounded young people trying to figure that out.
Like we all are. I mean, it's also so beautiful to fail together and to learn together and to etc. It's such a beautiful journey. And at the same time,
tragic
I think
and beautiful.
Yes, tragic and beautiful, wounded and beautiful, sacred and super painful and full of suffering as well. And I want to just quickly mention that self-love was something like a word that impressed me so much in my path that I was like, no, I'm not into self-love. That's just too much.
Too
self-love, it's too extreme. Like, am I loving myself? No. I was just it was just too complicated, too mental. It was too much. What was this term charged with? And self-love eventually is very simple. It is, do you sense yourself? Do you sense your skin? Do you sense your feet? So whenever I'm standing in front of my partner and there's a lot of confusion and intensity going on, I'm not stressing my mind out around, am I still loving myself? And it's a complicated term and it impresses me to death. But it's rather, do I sense my feet?
Yes. Am I in my own body? Am I in my own space?
And again, inner vibration or maybe even visible shaking helps a lot. Yeah. Just with making sure my energy keeps running through my nervous system.
Right, instead of getting like stuck or frozen or...
Yeah. Especially what men, I think, do very brilliantly as far as I see them showing up. This turnaround presence. Yeah. It's so courageous how they really, really struggle to stay present, and they're really doing a great job. And it would be way easier if presence wouldn't be like a mental term, because it's not. It's a very whole body state of just keeping vibrating. Yeah. So whenever it is about presence, it's not about keep staring at her, keep stopping breathing, stay in the here and now. It's rather like, whatever it is, but it's like stay in this animal state of being with the vibe.
Aliveness. You talk about the tiger and the tigress, right? Like, and, you know, again, some men might be like, yes, I get it. Other men listening, you might be like, well, that's a little strange to think of myself as a tiger, but I can feel that there's this primal, energetic animal state. And when you watch an animal, right, there's like a constant motion and allowing things through. Even, you know, this is a different example of an animal, but when a deer, right, has something, you know, they get run past by a car or something happens, there's a shaking that happens in the energy to release that trauma. And we as humans tend to just grip and, like you said, stop breathing.
Yes. And really the power potential of relationships is releasing a few thousand years of freeze and shutdown from all of us. And I'm longing so much. I'm looking so much forward to a future where it's not only about us knowing the female woundings in this path, but also the male woundings. Yeah. And of course, then the woundings of all other sexes, as it's all intertwined. I think how harsh it has become for us to function in roles.
Yeah. I'm wondering too, if you have an idea about this. I mean, I think this is something that I help men understand too. And I want to take your perspective. Like, do you have a sense of why people get so mad at each other and why that anger comes up in a relationship dynamic?
It's, yes. So if I love you, my deepest wish is to surrender, let's say, in your arms, into my inner power and inner softness. Not into collapse, not into weakness, not into force, into the power of softness.
Power and softness instead of posture
as one
collapse.
And the same.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the only ingredient that's truly, truly needed for that is absolute safety. And we learn we have to dare intimacy. We have to dare to love. And I disagree. We have to fulfill the circle of rage that comes in the first place.
Okay,
because rage...
Circle of rage. How do we fulfill the circle of rage? Help us understand that.
By allowing it to come up. And that is what's happening. I love you, so I'm closer to my longing for melting in your arms. My nervous system knows.
My rage.
Exactly. My nervous system knows the only chapter that's open, the only chapter that we need to re-enter is our anger. It is saying no, and by saying no, being so fully safe that the yes opens up in my nervous system instinctively.
Okay, we got to slow these down too. Yeah. So you said the only chapter left is to open the rage. The only chapter to get where? To get to intimacy or closeness or connection? Yes. Okay. So the only chapter left, like the only thing that is standing in the way of us actually being really connected is being with each other's anger? Or am I understanding?
Yes, we are. I'm sorry. I'm saying that from Europe. It's a little bit rough.
No, this is great. I just think you have so much wisdom in every sentence that it's got to be like helps to help us understand it and translate it all in there.
It's what I wanted to say is we are a little bit Hollywood brainwashed around love needs love.
Yes.
And I think we are witnessing a lack of love in this world. And that is not because love is lacking, but because our willingness to stay with each other's anger is lacking.
Yes. I've been thinking about this, right? I've been thinking about the connection between honesty and passion and intimacy. And I think, when we're honest, we get frustrated, we get angry, we get upset, and there's a way to artfully navigate that together. But if we're just kind of stuffing it and trying to be nice with each other, which is what a lot of people do, or we also, I think, stuff it, like we were saying, there's like the bitchy woman and the kind of cold, distant man, that's still stuffing the depth of what's actually going on. So it's all getting stuffed in there, as opposed to, like you're saying, let's meet each other in this place, which I think is terrifying for a lot of people. It's still scary for me.
It's super terrifying because it's also a lot. We are not prepared for how powerful we are. And without pushing another depth into this conversation, but how men can deal with their own anger is really, really losing the inherited fear of male power. We need men who stand in their power and by that provide us a role model for male power being of service for peace and safety instead of burning this planet down. So when we are talking about anger, we are actually not talking about anger. We are talking about symptoms of suppressed anger. We are talking about war and violence. That's not anger. Anger is a hell stop. Hell no. But it is not about violence. It is about efficiency and willpower. It is about individuation. And the moment
and saying no, it's not actually going and acting violent toward another, which is an interesting distinction too. Yeah. Keep going with that one.
I mean, it's not about revenge. It's not about a story. Let's say it in these words. Anger is a full contact power. It's maximum intimacy with a situation of threat and of I want something and I care for life in this situation and I disagree. And all of that is so suddenly over when anger is allowed to run through my nervous system. Then maybe it's a fight, but the fight is over and the rest of life is peace. So why people are stuck in the violence is because their nervous system keeps coming up with this charge of anger and then gets a full stop in the middle of the cycle.
Right, it's like just stuffing it.
And the stop and go is always agitation and collapse. Agitation, collapse, stress, collapse. And that is like Hollywood harmony and then a breakout.
Right. Conflict. Not letting it through. And I can see, one of the things I would imagine that, and actually couples tell me, it's like, nobody wants to feel blamed, shamed, attacked. I think we've associated anger, at least in our culture, with attack, with blame. And it's not necessarily, right? And so I wonder too, sometimes what I support my men with is like taking the content out of the fight and just letting some of that energy through. Again, I think that can often feel very strange to people who've never done anything like this before, who've never, toned or groaned or anything like that. Like couples are like, what are you telling me to do? This is so weird. And it can be so helpful. Like, I listened to one of your recordings and the music about just like shaking through the anger and letting it through. And I think that's another way too, is that when we're doing some of our own work to release our anger on our own, we can then actually bring more clarity to our partners.
Yes, because what you say, anger provides us with clarity and focus and efficiency in action.
Yes.
And let's be a little bit challenging. Yes, what we suggest is weird. Because if the normal mass solutions would work, they would have already worked. Yes, they would have already worked. It's like, do you want to be bored with answers from yesterday for a future of tomorrow? Do you want to be bored?
Do you want to be bored in a passionless marriage where you're resenting each other and just...
Yes, and also in terms of self-growth or in terms of challenge or in terms of adventure.
Yes.
I mean,
your own life.
It's like our struggle in life should be so much more about, can I reduce the amount of adventure instead of can I escape from 9 to 5? And
can I reduce the amount of adventure, you're saying?
I think that's a more realistic challenge for us. If we awaken to the inner powers, it's like, ooh, could my life please be a little bit more boring? It's so adventurous. This is way more, it's closer to reality than us like wanting to have at least a little bit of party at the weekend. And I think it's tragic that we are so stuck in boredom, but it comes from us wanting a solution that somehow doesn't seem to be weird. And I want us to be weird. I want more courageous, weird men who invent new mistakes because they dared to step onto a new path. I want new stuff.
I love your challenge. World. I tend to be a little more in the, okay, I do so many weird things. And, and I look at other people and I think, well, they're going to think that's really weird. So I love that you're challenging. Like, okay, if it worked to do fights the way we do them, we would have a much higher success rate in our relationships and we'd have a lot happier people, less depressed and anxious. So
we wouldn't have a job, Shana. Woo!
Yeah. So let's shake it up and let's actually allow ourselves to feel it and welcome it from another person. Again, not shame, blame, and attack, but the energy of anger, the passion.
Yeah. And it's so wonderful when I also get asked about, for example, projections. And like my answer is almost always, all of us are projecting all the time.
Yes.
You can relax. Yes, she's for sure projecting on you. Yes. That's happening right in this moment, just like yesterday, just like tomorrow.
Just like tomorrow. And then what? Well. What do you tell them to do then after that?
Exactly as what you are telling them as well. It's about whatever the story is, it is a superficial layer. And underneath, our nervous system is just craving for, see me in my instincts, see me in my power. And if you see my no, and if you see my dignity, I will be able to feel so safe with you that I'm the happiest person on earth melting in your arms. It's almost like unlearning the blockages that prevent us from loving and melting instead of heading for more love.
Yeah.
Be nice. That's the good boy and the good girl trauma.
Right.
I mean, the good girl trauma or good boy trauma is somehow you want to be loved, so be lovable.
Yes.
And that is why it doesn't work. We tried to skip the anger chapter, but the anger chapter comes first. And we are not in charge around this decision. It has been made millions of years ago in other jungles, in other eras. It is written in our nervous system. If you cooperate with your instincts, you are wired for passion, you are wired for power, you are wired for softness, and you are wired for strength. And if you do not cooperate with your instincts, I'm sorry, but I think you will lose. I think it's a losing game.
This is amazing. Thank you so much.
I do not see any neocortex being stronger than the animal inside. Yeah. And why shouldn't we want to be stronger than the animal inside?
Yeah.
We are good animals.
Thank you so much for this. And I can see that, there might be some questions of, right? I think oftentimes I help men, I practice with men, and they can stand in the face of the fire with me and feel their own nervous systems and how would they respond. And I imagine that they can do something similar with you, like get into that intensity. Do you help them, stay grounded? Yeah.
It's really offering a training space for containing the own inner power. Yeah. And I'm so happy to know that there are men like stepping into more of, I can tolerate how powerful I am. Oh, men are powerful, and that's so needed.
Oh, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Shana.
Yeah, where can men find more of you? Or people,
I mean,
where can everybody find more of you?
ilanstephani.com. And in the internet, I just love the internet as a way of us celebrating that we are interconnected with and without internet. But I think with internet, it's so much fun. So ilanstephani.com is my website. And then YouTube, Facebook, alternative platforms, social media. I'm so happy to be connected to these fields of explorers.
Thank you. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.